A federal appeals court has ruled that most of Trump's 2025 global tariff imposed under the International Emergency Economic Power Act, IEEPA, are unlawful. The judges stressed that the tariffs are a core congressional power, not for president, not a presidential power, and that the Constitution vested taxing authority exclusively to Congress. So the president can't just collect tax without Congress approval. So this marks a significant blow to one of Trump's signature second-term policy. The ruling does not take effect immediately. The tariff remains in place until October 14, 2025, giving Trump administration time to seek Supreme Court review. After the incident, Trump warned on Truth Social that eliminating the tariff would be a total disaster for the country and literally destroys the United States of America. So we all know Trump used tariff policy during his first term. So what happened during the first term? Were the tariff policy challenged during the first term? The answer is yes. Trump faced multiple lawsuits over tariff during the first term. However, those tariffs were imposed under a different act, right? They were imposed under Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act, for national security purposes, and Section 301 of the Trade Act of 1974, which is under unfair trade practices. So during the first term, the court upheld these laws, giving Trump administration significant leeway to act, providing he followed the required investigative procedures. Now, another question is, if the laws being used during the first term are legal, why is Trump using a different law for the second term, the International Emergency Economic Power Act? The reason is because this law is much more powerful and efficient, right? Because now he doesn't have to do any formal investigation, because during the first term he has to use the Commerce Department to do investigation to say certain countries are posing national security to U.S. And Trump believes that using this law, he can do a sweeping universal tariff on every single country in the world, and without having to do any investigation. All he needs to do is to declare a national emergency. So Trump did say he believes U.S. is in an economic national emergency, and that's his basis on using this law. And he believes he now has the power to regulate or prohibit economic transactions with foreign nations during this so-called economic national emergency. So what's going to happen next? I think Trump will have to push aggressively to expedite Supreme Court review before the October 14th deadline. Given the stakes, the Supreme Court is expected to respond very quickly. The outcome is uncertain. We don't know what's going to happen, but right now, out of the 9 judges in the Supreme Court, 6 are appointed by a Republican president, and 3 are appointed by Democratic presidents. So what's going to happen if the Supreme Court also find his tariff illegal? Well, number one is there will be a retroactive financial consequence. So the government may need to refund over $159 billion collected in tariff, and this would widen the budget deficit, increase Treasury borrowing in the future. So they're going to have to issue more debt in the future to cover the deficit, which means more sellers in the market, pushing up the Treasury yield, pushing up the long-term interest rate. If we look at balance of payment theory, economic theory, if there's no more tariff in the future, U.S. will have a higher import, which would push which will push more dollar abroad, because foreigners will be selling stuff to America, earning more dollar. So the foreigner will have more access to dollar, and they will recycle those dollar back into U.S. by investing in, of course, the stock market or the bond market, because it's supposed to provide more yield, and which will support a stronger dollar. Right? The second implication is the U.S. importers will be benefited because they were the ones paying the tariff, and the $159 billion collected tariff will be returned back to the U.S. importers, not to the foreigners, because tariffs are paid by the U.S. importers. The third implication is relief for affected countries, because a lot of countries are suffering due to the US tariff policy. For example, Canada is getting hit hard. Canada's GDP, Q2 GDP, shrank 1.6% annualized. It's the sharpest drop since COVID, with export to US plunging 27% year over year. And if the tariff policy will be canceled, it will be very beneficial to countries like Canada. The fourth implication is a shift to alternative authority, because Trump administration will likely have to return back to the same law used during his first term, right? The Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act, Section 301 of the Trade Act of 1947, to continue doing the tariff stuff. But they are a lot less slower acts, because they need to do some investigation, and it's a lot less powerful weapons, because they can't just do a universal tariff on every single country to get them to the negotiation table. And number 5 is the trade deals that are already negotiated. They are at risk because countries agreed to have a trade deal with Trump when Trump had more cards. But if Supreme Court is saying those cards are illegal, those countries may come back and say, now your leverage disappeared and we want a new trade deal. Number 6 is there could be a damage to U.S. credibility, because Trump will have a policy change or policy reversal due to this, and to the eyes of the foreigners, U.S. trade policy flip-flop would mean the country is less credible. But of course, the reason is because the judicial branch challenging the executive branch, but does not matter the reason. The reason does not matter. In the eyes of the foreigners, you are flip-flopping. Right? Thank you very much. Please like and subscribe.